I'm Destiny Davis. I'm a therapist in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm here with Victoria Rodriguez, a therapist out of Louisiana. We both specialize in medical trauma, and we are putting on the Chronic Illness Therapist Conference, the first one of its kind in Atlanta, March 6th and 7th.
Yeah, we just cannot wait to welcome you either to Atlanta or virtually. I'm really excited about the topic that we'll be diving into today, how empathy is not, it's definitely required when you're working with chronically ill clients, but it cannot be the only skill that you bring. Yeah, Destiny, what's coming up for you with that?
Yeah, for sure. Without kind of the right framework for clients, I think empathy alone, it just leaves you often feeling burnt out, confused, helpless. That comes up a lot with clinicians because living with a chronic illness, and especially in the US medical system, there are a lot of things left without answers. And so compassion is really important. Validation is really important. We know that we go a lifetime of experiencing medical gaslighting. And so it is really therapeutic and important for us to bring that validation to clients' experiences. But after a certain point, clients will get burnt out with that as well. And they need more. They need something that is tangible that they can really use in their day-to-day life, on top of the self-compassion work that so many of us do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I have a little chronically ill buddy behind me today for those of you who are listening. I think too about clients or us as therapists who are chronically ill and maybe not just over empathizing, but maybe some saviorism coming through. It's where it becomes more about our emotional experience and less centered on the person that we are working with. And I think, like you said, that can especially come up more in working with chronically ill clients when we ourselves have worked in the US healthcare system. Maybe we've gone through it ourselves. If empathy, if lived experience, that those are all positive things, but it's not enough. It doesn't quite meet that connection. What maybe do you feel can add to that specialty, can add to that knowledge base?
One is just the medical language. So medical terminology is really important for you to understand when your clients are talking to you about their experiences, that you really do grasp what it means to have an excision surgery versus an ablation surgery, for example, with endometriosis. And, this is not to say that you should know every medical terminology in the book or that you need to know it all right now, but that's kind of why we're here today as part of this ongoing learning process. So that's one thing that comes to mind. How about you, Victoria?
My background is in counselor education, and I think a solid basis in theory for working with chronically ill clients, a solid modality or theory that you're working with, lived experience can be so helpful for us to connect culturally, to build rapport, and then maybe that next step, just to bring your clinical practice to that next level, is having a really solid understanding of even disability theory, right? So I'm really excited. A lot of the speakers that we have for the Chronic Illness Therapist Conference are situating that within the research. It was very important in all of the work we do to be evidence-based. And I just could not be more excited that you have the same kind of background.
Yeah, exactly. My background is in clinical rehabilitation counseling. We actually had go back to the medical terminology, we had a whole class on medical terminology, flashcard style, like rote memorization, but it was really helpful. And I think more than anything, I want to talk a little bit about maybe the emotional experience that you might be feeling as you're learning what theories work, what theories don't. I know it's pretty common in the chronic illness world to kind of be anti-CBT. There is a place for CBT work, but again, talk about frameworks. It's important that you know how, when, and why to use CBT, and it has to still be within the context of validation and understanding the medical system. Because if you say something like, well, your doctors, are saying you're all good, they haven't found anything, and so do you think that this pain is just a catastrophizing response? Even if you don't use the word catastrophizing, if that's still the underlying message, you're going to lose your client. They will not come back for another session. And if they do, because they can't verbalize quite what's happening for them, they're going to they're going to start hiding deeper and deeper and deeper. And we actually at that point are doing harm in therapy, and we might not even know it.
And that's such a good point. That's where it comes in. Empathy is not enough. Because in that scenario that you just named, I can empathize with the client so well, right? We know what it's like to go through and say, well, the test came back negative. You're perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with you. Aren't you happy about that? But someone who really understands disability theory and chronic illness culture and disability culture is going to understand how devastating that can actually be for a client. And that's why it's important where empathy is not enough. You need to have a really solid structural base in disability and medical trauma and chronic illness. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Things like understanding ADA laws and accommodations, as well as on the more just like personal day-to-day life. What is it like to try to have sex when you have chronic pain with your partner, with your partners, people that you love and like want to be intimate with, and yet there's something stopping you. Again, mindset work there is not, it's not going to cut it. We need a healthcare team who understands, who's not perpetuating traumatic gaslighting. And we also have to know how to interact with our clients' healthcare team. We have to navigate scheduling with their doctors, a time for us to check in with their doctors. That's a whole thing on its own of figuring out how to make that work. And we really have to understand all the different aspects of their life. So again, sex and chronic pain, managing finances with chronic pain, and then also learning how to help a client partner with their body and be in their body again, with the caveat of understanding that dissociation is often protective. And again, if you're going to try to work with a client on something, you have to have the frameworks to give them something before you take something away, like dissociation.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of chosen dissociation if it is a tool that we can choose in and out, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's also important when you talk about like, I want to make sure I say this in the exact right way, which again is why there's a whole conference built around this, because the language we choose is so important. I think with chronic pain, it can be especially difficult if you're a pre-licensed individual, right? If you are in grad school or pre-licensed, you might feel that panic of my client is in pain. I have to help them. I have to, in some ways, rescue or save them. I'm empathizing so much with what it's like to be in that chronic pain state. And while again, we want to have that basis of empathy and understanding, that might not be what your client needs in order to work through that pain, because then you're both getting caught in this pain, fear, panic response cycle. Is that something
Yeah,
that you see with your clients or even supervisees?
absolutely. And also what I hear a lot too is this idea of like running out of things to say. I don't know how to help them anymore. I don't know if what I'm doing is working. I don't know if they're getting anything out of session. And so that usually tells me that like all of your kind of go-to tips and tricks that maybe work with other clients is no longer working with this client. And that's kind of proof that you might need a little bit more framework, or a different understanding of disability, a different understanding of ambiguous health conditions, or dynamic disabilities is what it's actually called. But you can think of it in terms of ambiguous. Sometimes things are looking a certain way and sometimes they look completely healthy. So it's a lot of layers, which is why in this conference we have so many niche presentations. And we're the goal and the aim is that we're going to go over each and every one of these concepts. And then whatever resonates with you most, you can keep learning about that thing after the conference.
I wonder if we can talk a little bit too when we talked about you teaching a client how to build almost empathy with their bodies. Can you tell us a little bit about at this conference how we're going to help chronically ill therapists empathize with their own bodies, like how we're going to
Yeah.
accommodate chronically ill therapists?
Yes, definitely. So we have so many things in place at this conference for you to even just pay attention to what's happening in your own body, take breaks and step out as needed. We'll have a sensory room, which is really, it's awesome. We have such a phenomenal space. So it's an entire separate room that is closed off and will be dimly lit, soft music playing in there. Some other kind of sensory items in there so that you can just go in, take a break, and come back when you're ready. This is how we pace. You don't have to worry about, missing a few minutes of the presentations. We actually, I mean, if your brain is not listening anyway because it needs a break, you're better to give yourself what you need. And it's really only through modeling it for yourself that you're going to be able to feel really confident in doing that for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think about us taking space for sensory needs, like what you talked about. So, fragrance-free environment, masks given in every bag, low lighting, large text, reminders. So if you're somebody maybe like us who struggles with transitions, so we're not just talking about physical disabilities, right? We're also talking about accommodations for mental health needs. If you're somebody who has difficulty with transitions from one task to another, we're going to have transitional time built in, just all kinds of accommodations that we try to include.
Yeah, we also have free caregiver passes, which is something we're really proud to offer. So if you are somebody that needs assistance for whatever reason, you can bring a caregiver. You just email us, let us know. Just let us know what your caregiver is needed for, the specific tasks or maybe anxiety. That's fine. Just you don't have to go into your medical details, but just give us a snapshot of why you need a caregiver pass, and we're happy to give you one.
Yeah, absolutely. So if they are interested in signing up, where they can do that.
Yeah, so chronic illness therapists, plural.com. It's chronicillnesstherapists.com. If you go there, we have 3 different registration options. There's one for students. It's $300 or $250 with the code Atlanta. We also have a professional ticket. It's $525 or $425 with the code Early Bird. That's still active. And then we also have a really fun package that my brain threw together, and it's called the Executive Functioning Package. So if you are traveling to Atlanta from out of state and you want to bring 2 of you, so you and somebody else who needs CEs, this could be physical therapists or other mental health therapists, because we have CEs for PTs as well. You can bring a friend. We will pay for your hotel room. We will arrange your transportation from the hotel to the airport and back. And we will also be throwing in 2 Atlanta City passes, which gets you into 6 different attractions all around the city, and a free breakfast or dinner of your choosing at the hotel with your conference buddy.
Yeah, I could not be more excited too. For the City Pass, for those of you who are interested in attending, you get free passes to the Civil Rights Museum, some sports museum. We are not sports people, but if that is your thing, they have it. And then the aquarium, the zoo. So just Coca-Cola, there's so many options for exploring. So especially if you're somebody who's chronically ill or disabled, this is the conference for you if you've always wanted the opportunity to travel, but you've needed accommodations to make that happen.
Yeah.
I'll say a little bit about continuing education as well. We're approved for 13 CEs for social workers, counselors, PTs, and CRCs. So again, we just could not be more excited to offer it to a variety of licensure types.
Absolutely. Yes, we're so excited, and you can book that now on the conference website. And when you book, you will also get our replay of our 3-hour countertransference and chronic illness workshop that we did just a few weeks ago.
Okay, well then we will see everybody at chronicillnesstherapist.com, and we hope to see you in Atlanta March 6th through 7th.